What is happening, everybody? Welcome to my F1 channel. Welcome to Peter on Pole. My name is Peter, in pole position. In the lead up to Drive to Survive Season 3, we are going back to Season 1 all the way through and reviewing every single episode. Forgive me for the red eye. I accidentally poked myself just before recording. We are currently on episode 7. Keeping Your Head is the title of this episode. And it's all about Romain Grosjean. Yes, indeed. The man who makes people laugh for all the wrong reasons. But I tell you what, the way Netflix portrayed this episode, I felt utterly sorry for the guy. He talks about in Formula One, he starts off by saying in Formula One, you need to be on top of your game every single race, every single season. But when you hit tough moments, when you have a big crash, your confidence gets knocked with it. He says when you go through a tough part, you start to have doubts. Then it pans to Spa 2012, where he had what you would call a horrible, awful crash. Thankfully, nobody died. It was that kind of crash into turn 1 in Belgium, one of the most dangerous tracks on the circuit. And he took about, I think, 5 or 6 cars out in one hit. It was just a domino effect. And yeah, it was kind of his fault. But ever since then, he hasn't really recovered. And we're talking 2012. After that, he went to go and see a psychologist just to get his mind back on track, to get his mind right. This is somebody who was clearly hit hard by this situation. He's a normal human being, and anybody in those circumstances, when you see the crash, anybody would go and see some sort of help just so that he comes back to his best, because he's actually a very quick driver. But this situation here knocked his confidence for sure. So he goes back to his home. We got a clip of his home in Switzerland. You know, I love a bit of the home footage. He's running around with his trainer. Running around. He's doing some training. He looks like he's doing some laps, getting some cardio in. And in the meantime, you know, you sort of they flash back to all his crashes at the start of the season. He's had a tough start to the season as well, and he's had all kinds of crashes. And you know, you start to really feel terrible for him because of what he must be going through mentally. A person that's gone through so much in Formula One, even up until this date. But, you know, you sort of get the flashbacks basically. And, you know, I started to feel terrible for him. And to think at the time this was all happening, I have to admit, I was somebody who was laughing at him, who was like, this guy's a clown, this guy's a joke. Why is he in Formula One? Because of the things he was doing was so un-Formula One-like, if that makes sense. It's not what I'd been used to at all. Let's be clear here. There's only 20 Formula One drivers on the grid. We're talking about some of the best drivers, if not the best drivers in the world. And if you're in the top 20 best drivers in the world, even if you're 20th place, you're still a fantastic driver. You're a cut above. And so there is that element still. You know, you are the best, but you have to get in the zone. You got to hit the sweet spot in order to maintain that kind of level. We're at the French Grand Prix. This is his home Grand Prix. In fact, Romain is born in Switzerland. He has a French mother, so he's got a dual nationality, Swiss-French. He calls himself more Swiss because he likes to be on time and he loves chocolate. So we get a bit of humour from Romain. He's a human being at the end of the day, and I like that little element that they've added to him. You know, he's a bubbly. He can be a bubbly fella. I think he loves like happiness and positivity, and he's that kind of person that we get from the scene and further on. Guenther Steiner says that, you know what, Romain is a great driver, but when he crashes, he loses confidence. And his thing was all about Romain just needs consistency, just to get above, just to move up in the ladder. He needs consistency. And so what it looks like, what it's telling us is that Romain hasn't had consistency in the Haas team under Guenther Steiner. He believes him to be quick, but everybody on their day is quick. If you're in Formula One, it kind of means that if you are on your day, you are fast, except for a few. There are obviously a few exceptions to the rule. But I think nobody's in disagreement that on his day, he is fast. His contract runs out at the end of the season, and the big debate, of course, is whether he should gain another contract, whether he should be in Formula One or in that Haas team. And from when it's a debate, you know you're in a bit of trouble. And to be fair, of all times to have a terrible season, this isn't the one. And he's had a terrible season to start off so far. We get to qualifying, and Will Buxton once again explains what the premise of qualifying is, why it's important. And I always just felt like that's really, really good, just for the new listener, for the new viewer, for somebody who's just watching this series as a like a binge on a series, as opposed to wanting to watch the sport. So it's just good just to keep them in the loop, and it's a good refresher and a good reminder. Then you get Romain Grosjean's teammate Kevin Magnussen, who is a much more determined driver, a much more driven driver. It might not, maybe it's not fair to use those kind of terms, but what I mean is he's far more confident. He's somebody who will do anything to win. He will do it at all costs. So he's never shy of confidence whatsoever. But he gives that aggressive side to him. He's got that more ice in his veins, if you will. And when you compare the two, they're very, very contrastingly different people. And Magnussen he even goes on to say, when it's your rival, when you're a teammate, in fact, that's your biggest rival. So it looks like an interesting matchup with these two at the helm. It could be a recipe for greatness, but then it could be a recipe for disaster. In qualifying, Romain Grosjean starts off well. He gets the car into Q3, which is brilliant for the Haas team. In Q3, however, he goes out for a flying lap and he loses the rear of the car, and he spins and he crashes, and a red flag for the session. Nothing caused it in terms of no other driver. He didn't crash into anybody else. He just didn't keep the car on the track well enough. And as Guenther Steiner had mentioned previous, Romain Grosjean is a good driver, but he needs consistency. He was getting frustrated. He kept effing and blinding, because for him, it's time after time after time. I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. Guenther's just lost all patience with this man. Romain, of course, gets out the car. He walks back to the garage, back to his room, and, he's so distraught. He's finished. He's done. He's fed up. He was saying that, he's too tired. He cannot sleep. All this bad luck is just draining him. And you're just, you feel so bad. I felt so sorry for him. I wanted to just sort of take back anything and everything I've ever said about him, because you see the human side. With Formula One, you don't get the human nature side of it too tough, because, they got helmets on, and it's just, you don't even know if they're smiling, if they're crying. If they take off their helmet, it's usually quite the usual bog standard press conferences, the media afterwards, everyone just says the same thing. It's quite a PR sort of based sort of thing. And, you don't really get the rawness, but in this series, which is what they've done superbly well, is that you get the human being. And it reminds you that this is a human being you're talking about, and who you're insulting at times, and who you're making fun of or making jokes about. And it kind of brings me back to, like, if that makes it, brings me back to like center, like, where I have to be like, don't be so cruel or harsh on these guys. I may have not been, but then I just need to check myself. I can't be saying, I've never done that, because that's just it's not showing a sign of humility there. But it's just, it just made me feel so deeply sorry for the guy. Now, of course, Grosjean obviously is looking back at the footage of what's happened, and everyone's being sympathetic towards him. Everybody's giving him a pat on the back, not to worry about it. Let's move on to the next thing. And then Guenther gives, Guenther's very different. Everybody's sympathetic towards Romain, but then Guenther's not. And it hit me, it struck me in a way, because I felt like the thing you need to do right now in this position is cater to the guy. Remember that he's a human being. Remember that he's made the mistake, so of course he feels crap about himself. Now, of course, it's happened so many times that maybe Guenther's hit the last straw. But on the other hand, I feel like this is where the leader needs to come out of Guenther, whereby, embrace the guy, and then, give him the confidence to get back out on track again and do what he does best. Because this is, at the moment, is killing him. And as he leaves the pit lane, he sort of looks back, Grosjean. He looks back at Guenther. It looks like in the direction of Guenther, because there's other people there. And it's almost like, right, that's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do to me. Is that, everyone else has been sympathetic. Everyone else has been nice. And it looks like that's something that's going to remain in his mind and remain in his head, is because of that kind of, when you've got such a boss in a way that is not, it depends what kind of person you are, yeah? Like, I'm a person who, I like the positivity, I need the good energy, the encouragement, I need the vibes, right? The stern telling off, there's a time and a place for it. But I feel like when everybody, like, you got to sense the room, if you will. If everybody's being sympathetic towards Romain, Just give him that for the first 5 minutes or so. Roman comes over to him and he says sorry, but Guenther is not sympathetic about it at all. And I just felt like this is a match that was not made in heaven at all, because you've got a driver who now he needs to be dealt with in a certain way. You have to adapt to the personnel you have in your team. I feel like as a leader, that's what you need to be doing. And I saw very quickly, in the first episodes of Drive to Survive, you think, Guenther's hilarious, he's banter, because he's always swearing, he's always annoyed about what's going on with the team, whether it's crashes, whether it's pit stops, whatever it may be. And it's fun and entertaining, right? But then you have to take a moment and say, okay, this is fun, but at what point do we turn around and say, Guenther, come on, let's help your brother out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Help your teammate out, help the guy, get his confidence back. Because if Roman is in a good place, he performs better, and that's good for the team, and that's good for Guenther. So it was strange to just see that dynamic, and I just felt like, come on, Guenther, man, you could have done better there. There's a colleague there, Asian looking guy. I tried to look for his name, I couldn't find his name, but he's always side by side with Guenther, and he was sort of saying that man, the guy's confidence is shot at the moment. And then Guenther responds and says, well, maybe I don't think that's the case. I think he doesn't care anymore. I'm thinking, like, brother, like, why do you think that? Why are you assuming that that's the case? In defense of Guenther, this is happening time and time and time again, and I get why he's lost it. But it's funny because they're on camera, them ones, and it's just like, you thought, now I don't want them to turn it down a notch at all, but you thought he would have been a bit more conservative with the way he speaks about Romain Grosjean. And then Grosjean goes on to say, that Formula One's a lonely place, because when you've done something like made a mistake or whatever, everybody is talking about you. You don't really get that comfort from anybody. You don't get that sympathy. You don't get that, and this is why he went to go see a psychologist, And it's interesting, that made me think, there's no psychologists in Formula One in terms of the teams, because in other sports, you've got psychologists every day. So to not see a psychologist here is quite interesting. And so that was quite, again, the dynamic is just all wrong. Roman and Guenther shouldn't be in the same team. That's one thing I've learned for sure. After qualifying, they have a team dinner. You see the Haas team dinner there without Romain Grosjean. Now, Grosjean might have turned around and said, look, today, of all days, I'm not in the mood for a team dinner. And then you've got Guenther Steiner making jokes, talking about maybe because he didn't get any points, Roman's is not going to be here, right? He was giving digs, and he was all he was kind of being mean, if I'm honest. And he even had to say, don't worry, I will tell him later on today or tomorrow, so you don't have to run off and tell him, Guenther said this about you. But it was just that thing, Magnussen, his partner's there, the whole team seems to be there, friends and family and whatever else. But yeah, no sign of Roman. We get to the race now, and Romain Grosjean starts off well, but then he starts getting hit in the back. He's getting pushed out wide in the circuit. He's getting, very frustrated in the race. He's complaining. He's sliding down the table. He was in the top 10. He starts sliding all the way down out of the points. And obviously he's going back into his team radio saying, look, guys, come on. I'm getting pushed out wide. Someone's hit me. And, he retains the car. He keeps the car stable. You think, okay, brilliant. Well done, Roman. And this is the home Grand Prix as well, the French Grand Prix. Guenther Steiner's like, tell him to stop whinging, tell him to stop complaining, because it's funny, the team radio, Romain Grosjean's team radio guy, he's sort of like, okay, Roman, I understand, I saw that as well. And then Guenther's like, no, tell him to stop whinging and focus on the race. And it was just like, again, look, I just saw this again, I just thought, come on, Guenther. So he's sliding down the grid. Meanwhile, Kevin Magnussen's having a brilliant race. He's going up the grid. And so it made me think, well, the car isn't that bad. Because I thought the pace just wasn't there. And he was just getting beat and beat and beat. But then Magnussen's going up the grid. He gets into the top 10 and then into the top 6. And he's having to hold off Bottas right at the end for 6th place. He's finishing ahead of a Mercedes here, Kevin Magnussen. And he finishes 6th place. It's a fantastic result for Kevin Magnussen, 6th place. Roman finishes in 11th. Gene Haas, the owner, was saying, it's a shame we couldn't get the other car to make up a place. But nonetheless, well done for Kevin Magnussen. And then you see the compliments coming in. Gene Haas at the end says, wow, that's one hell of a driver. And so it's, the favor, the love, let's say the favorite is definitely Kevin Magnussen out of the two. Guenther says after the race, in the sport, you have to be determined. And it felt like he was praising Magnussen and he was shooting at Grosjean. And I got that feel, the way that they put the pieces together. It was one of those where, okay, this is going to be, here's another sad in a way story or in the episode. I feel like Netflix was making me go down each episode now. At first I was on a high. It's sort of bringing me low a little bit. I wonder if it ends well, but yeah, it just feels like this is just can we end this marriage already? Then it ends with Guenther saying, we are looking at other drivers on the market because of Grosjean's contract being up at the end of the season. And so it does not look great for Romain Grosjean whatsoever. And the episode ends. And it does continue on because it talks about coming up. And then you see what happens later for the Haas team. But yeah, crazy episode. It was a different kind where I felt like, I know we felt sorry for Esteban Ocon and you had Sainz as well. You had Danny Ricciardo in previous time. But with this one, it was more so like, okay, this is a man who is getting no love from anybody. Maybe his engineer, his team radio guy, maybe just him, because I think he's a bit more sympathetic. But we're watching a guy who is being almost hung out to dry by his team, by the way he's being spoken to, by the way people are thinking about him, speaking about him. He hasn't covered himself in glory, but there's a way in which I think the criticism should come. And I feel like definitely these two need to be well away from each other. Romain Grosjean is the type of guy who will sort of build him up, build up his confidence, encourage him, make him get out of his head, because Grosjean is mentally weak, and it doesn't help when your boss is so stern with you, because it just piles on more misery to him as opposed to him breaking free and breaking out. We hope that we see something else in the coming episodes of Grosjean, that there's a bit more steel in him. But I thought, horses for causes. You need to adapt for each situation. With Kevin Magnussen, you don't need to be like that. You can give him the sternness because he will take it and say, all right, watch what I'm going to do. Whereas Grosjean, it's like, no, Grosjean, you're still a good driver. Remember this. You're one of the best in the world. You are great. You can drive. You can get on the podium. You can get us some great points. You can win a race. If you build him in that way, Grosjean then is, the confidence is high. He's flawless. So interesting video. Let me know in the comments below. Let's have a conversation about this episode. Let me know what you think. Please do like the video as well, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hear about 80% of you don't subscribe to my channel. What's up? Yet you're watching. So it'll be great if you subscribe to the channel as well. Episode 8 out next. Boy, with that said, lights out.